Alright, time for today's thoughts at 2 weeks till race day. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video today, so strap yourselves in. Firstly, a confession. I decided yesterday that I was going to sleep in today and reduce my travel as well, all with a long-term view. So I used to be a bit of a slave to the program, which I've alluded to before. I would never have done something like this, but I believe it was the right thing to do, both for today, but as I said, more so for the long-term view, with the next couple of weeks being very busy. So now that's out of the way, let's talk about the run this morning. It was a longer endurance run with some race intensity work mixed in there. So during the race phase of training, we include a fair bit of race intensity work, more so for specificity than anything else, but obviously there is some value in terms of conditioning. But I think there's as much about a learning and a skill of what race intensity is, and learning to pace yourself, and that rolls into the feeling and not just necessarily metrics. So for example, today I did some work at race intensity, above race intensity, and then back at race intensity. So it forces you to be realistic at times, and for some people that's what's required, and in other cases or at other times it actually shows what's possible. And for me, I'm the same. It's a mix. Sometimes it's very humbling, and sometimes it's confidence boosting, but the fact is it's real. Also, quick note about doing stuff above race intensity and why you might do it, and today's example is also a good reminder of some of the value of that. And it was simply that sometimes like forcing yourself to go above race intensity just sometimes wakes up the body. So the first 5 minutes I felt a bit sluggish, but then I had to sort of try and rev a little bit higher and push it along, and then by the second time I went back and settled back into what felt right, like race intensity, I had much better rhythm. So the other thing to note at this time is not every session needs or should have race intensity work included. You still want to have that variation. So I'm still doing strength-based sessions, I'm doing some higher end sessions where I'm really pushing well above that for that physiological response, such as the run off the bike yesterday. And as always, there's a continued focus on aerobic development. And that basically just means there's always aerobic undertones to my training program and any program that's written for a jet athlete, because ultimately that aerobic conditioning is the foundation upon which everything else is built. So moving now into more general discussion, and put simply, right now I'm very fit and physically very well prepared, but it raises a good point of discussion regarding fitness being seldom being the limiter for race day performance. I think for some they just basically don't get enough done, and by enough I mean they're not as consistent with their approach over a long term. But for most people, getting fit and physically well prepared is not going to be the limiter come race day. And a quick note, when we talk about consistency, obviously we talk about that overall approach. So that's not necessarily doing the same thing week in, week out. In fact, that's rarely the case, but it's consistency in the overall approach. So that's your training, it's all your supporting habits like your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration, and then as we get into it's about the other things that you do to prepare yourself for the race. Racing and racing well on that single day event is not just about how physically fit and well prepared you are. So the biggest limiters I see for age groupers when it comes to race day performance is that they're not fresh, they're not ready to race, they're not fresh, and sometimes that's a physical thing, but it's much more mental and emotional. And for me in the past that's definitely been true, and it's definitely been something that has led to underperformance, or at least inconsistency in race day performance. So what I mean by that is I could be very, very fit, and I believe as fit as I am now, I've probably been as fit and potentially even a little bit more fit in the past. But some races I've done really well and capitalised on that fitness, and other races I just haven't performed to the level in which my training suggested I was at. The second thing is pacing. So a lot of people are very unrealistic with their pacing, and many people go too hard too early. And many just simply race to what they should or could or would be able to do or have done in the past, rather than just simply dealing with it and racing and approaching the race with what they have right now for this particular race after this particular preparation. And finally, the last thing is I just see people thinking it's going to happen, and sometimes you just got to go and get it. You've got to grit your teeth, and you just got to get on with it and extract as much as you can from that single day performance as you possibly can. And we go by a very simple philosophy here at Jet Coaching, and that is be your best. So that's be your best no matter what. It's whether you're flat, it's whether you're having a good day, a poor day, you've had mechanical issues. It's no matter what, you just give your absolute best and try and get the absolute best performance out of yourself come race day. And finally, the third biggest limiter for race day performance for age group triathletes is nutrition. So some people underfuel, but it's most likely that they overfuel, or at the very least overcomplicate their fueling come race day. So a lot of people underfuel in training, and then on race day they try and hit a magic formula that they think is going to help them perform to their best come race day. But the big issue is that they haven't practiced that, so they don't actually know what their bodies and stomach can actually tolerate and how that makes them feel. So you're already in a racing environment, which is a higher stress environment, so you certainly don't want to overcomplicate it. So with nutrition, pacing, and not being fresh, what we're trying to do is we want to arrive to race day being physically very well prepared, mentally well prepared, and being fresh, but also making sure that you've dotted the I's and crossed the T's with regards to these other things. So in any case, we're trying to create performance predictability. So you've done good physical prep, you've got a clear plan, and then you've got a little bit of freedom come race day to race with pragmatism, but also something in the race plan that allows you to, have a crack and find out what you can do. So we've got 2 weeks to go, and that's the things that I'm going to be focusing on now. I'm going to keep maintaining the variation in my training, keep doing some race-specific work, some strength work, the aerobic development, having recovery and supportive sessions in there. But I'm just going to make sure that I do my due diligence with regards to my equipment, my pacing strategy, my nutrition, and all those things. So 2 weeks to go. I'm looking forward to them, and I'm also looking forward to sharing it along the way. Cheers.